Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great start to the week, a great Monday night. I'm going to wait just a minute. I have a tiny bit of a delay in my streaming. So glad you guys are joining me. I wanted to hop in and just give you guys some tips on natural first aid and things that we can use that work with our bodies, to help treat some of those minor conditions that we all run into from time to time. So I'm actually going to share my screen with you because I have some visuals for you tonight as well. All right, so again, tonight's topic is on natural first aid. So let's just dive right in. Please post any comments or questions that you have as we go along, and I will be happy to answer those. So let's talk about some of the properties that we want the oils and natural plant-based products that we're going to use, properties that we want these oils to have. Things like antibacterial properties. That's great for when we have cuts and scrapes. So things like cedarwood, melaleuca, oregano, those would have very high antibacterial properties. We like to have some oils too that can help to break up mucus when we're sick, when we are congested. Things like frankincense and spearmint are great for that. Antiseptic properties, again, when we have cuts and scrapes, things such as that, we want to really keep that area clean and hopefully prevent any infection from occurring. So lavender, lemon, oregano would be great choices. Antiviral, there aren't many antivirals out there, and that's because it's really hard to kill a virus because it lives on the inside of our cell wall, and most things that we would traditionally use to treat a virus can't penetrate through that cell membrane. But oils, the molecules, the tiny chemical molecules are so small that they can actually penetrate through that cell membrane. So some antiviral oils would be things like clove, lime, melaleuca, and oregano. A few other properties that are great to have in some of the oils that we'll talk about using. Regenerative. When you think of regenerative, think of skin, anything on the skin. If we have, again, a burn or a scrape or a cut, things like frankincense, lavender, and cypress are great oils that have regenerative properties. Sedative properties. So if we, need some, especially with kids, hey Diane, especially with our kids, if we have, if they're upset, maybe they've got a cut or a scrape, and we want to really kind of calm them down, lavender and frankincense are both great to use. And then for any kind of GI or stomach issues, we always think of peppermint. Peppermint is an excellent one to use. Ginger. Ginger actually has what we call antispasmodic properties. So sometimes when you have stomach discomfort, it's because those muscles there are cramped and spasming, and ginger really helps to relax those muscles. And also basil is another great one that sometimes you don't really think of for stomach issues, but it's great for stomach issues. All right, so I want to dive right into specific first aid problems that we might have, but also specific oils that you might want to think about having on hand. So helichrysum is one that may not be as popular, or you may not have heard of. Most people have heard of kind of the basics, lavender, peppermint, lemon, that type thing. But helichrysum is a great tool to have in your medicine cabinet. It can stop bleeding, so it has anticoagulant properties. Now, I've actually heard testimonies. I have not personally used it, have not had the need to use it for that reason. I use it for other reasons, but not for its anticoagulant properties. But I have heard of people actually putting it directly onto a cut and it stopping bleeding within a few seconds. So I know that it is very powerful. It is very good for bruising. So if you do have an area where you've bumped into something, you've hit something, and you have a bruise, helichrysum is awesome for that. I've used it on my kids' face before when they have ran into something, and it really helps with the bruising. So any kind of tissue injury, think about that. Scarring, it is excellent for scars. Helichrysum rubbed into a healed scar. You always, obviously you want it to be healed well. And then you can actually apply a little bit of pressure, dilute the helichrysum with coconut oil, and then just kind of massage the area, the scar. And it really helps to lessen the appearance. In fact, Tyler, my son, had a cut under his eye. And that's exactly what I did. And helichrysum was one of the main oils that I used, and you can't even see it under his eye anymore. I mean, literally. We had to dermabond his eye, or his skin under there. So, we used glue instead of sutures, and he had a pretty good incision there, and I mean, it looks great now. You can't even tell. So helichrysum is super powerful. It is also good for burns, and sometimes I'll find that people will have problems with ringing in their ears, and it is great for that as well. You would just actually rub it diluted around from the front of the ear and kind of around the back on the bone there. All right, clove. Clove has I just want to mention one thing about clove before we go into first aid, but clove has super high antioxidant properties. So it's just a great oil to have and to use to help boost your immune system. But using it in the kind of first aid area, you can actually help to remove splinters with clove. So what you do is you just apply some of the clove directly over the splinter, and then you cover it with tape. Okay, and then you leave that for about 10 minutes or so, and then you pull the tape off, and it helps to remove the splinter. Now, of course, if the splinter is all the way underneath the skin and not kind of sticking out at all, that tactic's probably not going to work as well. But if it is, and sometimes I can't even see good enough to use tweezers to get it. This is a great technique to try. And then, of course, you always have some discomfort and irritation after you have a splinter and it's removed. Apply lavender to the area after that because it's extremely soothing. And lavender is kind of what we consider our Swiss Army knife, so to speak, in the essential oil world, especially when we talk about first aid. So I'll talk more about lavender as we go on. Dusty said that clove is awesome for a toothache and it numbs it right up. It absolutely does. I can attest to that as well, Dusty. It works very, very well. Clove actually dates way back. Historically, it was used for dental care, thousands of years ago. So it actually has some history to it. But yes, definitely works very well. Okay, so we were talking about lavender. Lavender, again, is kind of like your Swiss Army knife. If you just had one oil and you were looking to use or have an oil on hand for first aid purposes, then I would say lavender would be the number one oil that you would want to have on hand because it can be used for so many things. It's great for cuts and scrapes. Burns. I cannot tell you how many times I have burned my hands, my fingers in the kitchen, and lavender will stop the burning, probably within 10 seconds of applying it. So lavender is an awesome one to have on hand. In fact, I keep it right there in my kitchen area so that I can just grab it, when something like that occurs because I do tend to burn myself. Lavender, one thing that you might not know about lavender is that it also has anticoagulant properties. So it can also help with bleeding, which is very interesting, and I think a lot of people probably don't know that. Another reason that you would want to use lavender for first aid is bug bites. So any kind of itching, or we mentioned burning, but also itching from bites, lavender is your go-to. That's what you want to apply. And of course, it's extremely soothing if you have a child who's upset, maybe they had a cut or a scrape. Lavender is definitely going to calm them down and be very soothing to them. All right, there we go. Heat exhaustion. So this is one, peppermint. This is actually a picture of a peppermint leaf. But peppermint is one that we use throughout the summer. Many of you probably know that my kids play ball, and we're always out there in the heat, and it's just, they can get really, really hot, and of course have to stay very well hydrated. But keeping a bottle of just a little small spray bottle with water and a few drops of peppermint essential oil is amazing for spraying right on the back of the neck, and it just really cools down the body temperature. So that helps so much in the heat of the summer. This could be something you may think about taking to the beach with you, or just if you're going to be out in the heat for any reason. It really helps to cool you down. I like to spray it, like I said, right on the back of the neck. If you didn't have it in a spray bottle, you could certainly just take, a drop of it. If you don't have sensitive skin, you could apply it directly to the back of your neck. I do that. It doesn't bother me at all. If you haven't used it before, or if you think you might have sensitive skin, it is best to dilute it with a carrier oil like coconut oil. And then drinking lemon in your water, of course, is going to be good. Staying hydrated. The lemon really helps with detoxifying your body, and just it makes your water taste really good. So it kind of promotes you to drink more water, or prompts you to drink more water, I should say. Okay, wounds. So let's talk about cleaning cuts and scrapes. What I like to do is, I like to clean typically first with just like a hydrogen peroxide. So after I clean the wound off, then I will typically apply diluted On Guard and lavender, or sometimes I'll use lavender and Melaleuca. Those are two great choices. What's going to happen is the lavender is extremely soothing. And remember, we said that lavender had those anticoagulant properties, so it will help stop, if there's some bleeding going on. So that's why we use lavender. And then On Guard or Melaleuca, you could use one or the other, has very good antibacterial and antiviral properties. So just overall kind of an antiseptic, so that hopefully the wound does not get infected at all. And you see here, I have here, then apply Correct X. Those of you who use essential oils and have been using doTERRA, this might be a product that you have not tried, but it is amazing. So Correct X is basically like, I'm going to compare it to an antibiotic ointment, the kind that you see in the stores everywhere. But it's kind of just like it comes in a little tube. It's an ointment that has multiple essential oils in it. So it has things like frankincense, Melaleuca, lavender. I can't remember all of the oils that are in it, but that's what I use it for. Anywhere I might consider using some type of antibiotic ointment, I'll use Correct X. So on a cut or a scrape, it's really, really good. I love to have that on hand. Okay, burns. Okay, so we talked about burns. I mean, like I said, I burn myself in the kitchen all the time. I typically just apply lavender, but I wanted to give you a couple of other options. So peppermint, because again, it's very cooling and it's very soothing. So peppermint would be another one that you could apply. And then if you have helichrysum can actually stop that burn from blistering up, from getting that blister on there. So helichrysum might be one that you want to go ahead and apply initially to help prevent some of that blistering. Now you see in this picture there's a Band-Aid there, right? So I like to, this is just kind of another tip. If we have any kind of burn, I do like to cover it if I'm going to be, let's say it was on my hand, and I'm going to be, it's during the day and I'm working, or I'm, obviously working in the kitchen, or I'm going into work, then definitely keep it covered. What I would do is if I was going to put a Band-Aid on, I would apply that Correct X. Put the Band-Aid on, because I don't want, anything contaminating it and it possibly getting infected. But then at night, what I like to do is leave it open to air, because that's what's really, that air getting to it and it's starting to kind of scab over. You don't want it to stay too moist all of the time. So I like to keep it open to air at night. So cover it during the day or when you're out and about, and then keep it open at night. All right, blistering. So blistering, you can get, this can obviously be painful. Two essential oils that are great to apply for this and that really help with some of the discomfort, and obviously with, preventing, first of all, soothing, and then preventing any type of infection, lavender and Melaleuca. I would just have put a drop of lavender in my hand, drop of melaleuca, and then a couple of drops of your carrier oil, which would be like a coconut oil, and then just rub it directly on the area. Okay, we talked a little bit already about bleeding. Hopefully you don't have any situation that looks like this person's hand. But one or two oils that are great for bleeding are lavender and helichrysum. We already mentioned those. They have anticoagulant properties. But another option of an oil that you might have on hand is geranium. That one also is great to help with bleeding, to help stop bleeding. Now, I'm giving you multiple ideas of different oils that you can use for, one condition, because you may not have all of the oils, or what, you may not have melaleuca, but you have lavender. You may not have helichrysum, but you have lavender. So this is giving you options of things that you can use, and that's what's so awesome about essential oils, is that one oil can be used for 100 different things. But then also one condition can be treated with multiple oils. So it's really nice to just kind of know what your options are, because you may not have everything, right on hand. Okay, bee stings. These can be scary, I know, because we found out that Chloe was actually wasp, but that she was highly allergic to wasp stings a couple of years ago. But what you would want to do if you have any kind of bee or wasp sting, some of the oils that you would consider applying would be basil. Now, this dates back thousands of years ago. Actually, in ancient times, what they used for things like insect bites and also things like exposure to poison, like poison ivy, that kind of stuff, they would actually use basil. That's one of the oils that they used a long time ago. Other oils that are great for this are Roman chamomile, Purify. Purify is a blend of oils. It has multiple oils in it. It has things like lemon, lime, melaleuca, and Purify would probably be my go-to. That's my favorite. Anytime we've had anything like a bee sting, wasp sting, I always use Purify and lavender. Those are kind of my two go-tos. But basil and Roman chamomile are excellent as well. Okay, now, who doesn't need insect repellent? I mean, come on, especially where we live. In the South, not only mosquitoes, but gnats, can be really horrible. Many of you who are familiar with doTERRA know that they make an amazing insect repellent called TerraShield. Now what I have on the screen here is actually a recipe that you can make your own mosquito and insect repellent by using the TerraShield 20 drops, and that is a blend. Again, that's a blend of oils. It's the repellent blend, so it's used for insect repellent. You can add 10 drops of lavender and 10 drops of patchouli. Now, you could totally just use the TerraShield by itself, but if you wanted to kind of amp it up a little bit, you could add the lavender and the patchouli with some witch hazel and fractionated coconut oil. You could also totally just use water and fractionated coconut oil. It's funny, I love patchouli. I absolutely love the smell of it. How many drops, Dusty says, how many drops of Purify for a bee sting? So typically, Dusty, what I've done before with the Purify is just, I have not diluted because I've been grabbing it quickly. And I typically just put my finger on top of the bottle and turn it over and then put it right on and do that a couple of times. So I would say maybe, 3 drops. But you could also put 2 or 3 drops in your hand with, a few drops of coconut oil and then rub that together and then just rub it on the area. So I would say 2 to 3 drops. And you can reapply that, every 15 to 30 minutes. If the stinging and the discomfort does not go away right away, you can reapply. Because that's the interesting thing about oils, and this is why they work so well with our body, is because our body knows how to use the oils. They're plant-based. Our bodies have a similar cell structure as plants, so our bodies know how to use them. So when we use the essential oils, they're used up very quickly in our body versus taking a traditional medication where we may only, be able to take it every 4 to 6 hours because we could build up toxic levels. Oils are completely different. They restore balance in our body and they work with our body to help it heal itself. But they're used very quickly by the body, so you do need to reapply them more frequently than you would take like a traditional medication. So you could do that every 15 to 30 minutes. Okay, so I was going to tell you guys about, that was a great question though. I was going to tell you guys about this mosquito repellent. So I wear patchouli with other oils as perfume because I just love it. It's very woodsy. If you don't know what it smells like, it's kind of like hippie-ish. And I don't know why, I'm not a hippie, but I just love the smell of it. Well, I can remember I was sitting at the ball field. This was like, 3 or 4 years ago. And there were just gnats everywhere. And like everybody was just, gnats all in their face. And I remember somebody looked at me and said, "Why are the gnats bothering you?" And I hadn't put on any TerraShield, but I realized at that point that it was because I was wearing patchouli. They didn't even, no bugs, they didn't even bother me. So that's kind of a side benefit. Like I said, it smells really good to me, and so that's what I wear as perfume. But back to the insect repellent. So you could just use TerraShield, or you could make this little combination of your own and use that for insect repellent. Here are some other options for you. Again, you may only have some of these oils, or you may start out only having some of them. So this way, this gives you options. All of these oils listed on the screen here are great for repelling bugs. You could take 3 of the oils that maybe you only have 3 of these. Perfect. You use those 3, 10 drops of each. I usually use about a 2-ounce bottle, and then I like to put a few drops of fractionated coconut oil and then fill the rest with water. And that's what you use, to spray on you for repelling bugs. Now, I will also tell you that peppermint is excellent for ants. So if you ever have an issue with ants in your house, put some peppermint. First of all, you could do it in a spray bottle, and you could spray it directly like on the ants or, where they're coming in. But also, if you put it on cotton balls and you put it, like, let's say you have ants in an area in your bathroom, and you put cotton balls in that area, then the ants will actually like recede to wherever they came, whatever crack they came in, because they do not like peppermint. They also don't like wintergreen, just FYI. All right, so poison oak, poison ivy, what do you do about that skin reaction, that redness, itching that can be really, really awful? Lavender would be first, my go-to would be lavender. Purify would probably be my next go-to. Kind of think of this the same as bee stings and wasp stings in terms of what we're going to use. Now, Elevation, those of you who are familiar with doTERRA oils, you know that Elevation is the joyful blend. It smells amazing. It has lots of citrus oils in it, but surprisingly, it's really great for that skin irritation, redness, and relief of that. And it's probably because of 2 things. It has lavender in it, and then it also has Melissa in it, which is an amazing oil. It's one of the most expensive oils. Elevation's not very expensive, but Melissa is. So you get some of that really amazing oil called Melissa in it, and it has anti-inflammatory properties. So makes sense applying it to a red and inflamed area that would really help. Now, Zendocrine is also another oil blend. It's called the detoxification blend. Zendocrine comes in an oil, and it also comes in a soft gel. And I would probably, for this reason, if I had a breakout kind of all over me of some type of poison oak, poison ivy, I would take Zendocrine internally because that's really going to help pull out the toxins from exposure to that poison, basically. You could also dilute it and apply it topically. Another great way to do this would be in a bath. So, just a nice bath with, I would probably use some baking soda and Epsom salt, and I would use Zendocrine in the bath. It would be very soothing, and probably add some lavender to that. All right, bumps and bruises. I like to keep a spray bottle with lavender, frankincense, geranium, and cypress. And then I'll typically add the helichrysum also. But let me just say again, if you only had, let's say, lavender and frankincense, that would be a wonderful combination just to have for any kind of bumps and bruises. And, you know, even if you don't have kids, we all get bumps and bruises, right? But this is such a good combination to have for kids to just kind of keep on hand, because you know things like that are going to happen. Now this owie spray, it's kind of similar. I think of this one more for cuts and scrapes. Do you guys remember there used to be a spray that it was like Bactine or something like that, that I just remember my mom would always spray that on, you know, I can just remember scraping my knee, and then she would spray that stuff on there, and it stung like all get out, like it did not feel good. And I just always remember that. Well, this is what I would use as a more soothing form of spray like that. So I would use, again, a spray bottle, typically a 2 ounce. I'd put some water in it with some fractionated coconut oil, lavender, frankincense, and melaleuca. Those are kind of your 3 go-to for, you know, any type of skin irritation, scratch. Yes, Tammy, helichrysum, you have to get some helichrysum. It's amazing. It's so good for the skin. It's good for anything skin related. And then again, like I said, if you get a cut or something, then you're prepared. Okay, spraying. If you are active yourself, or especially if you have active kids, somebody's probably going to sprain something at some time or another, right? This is a good little combo that you can use to, let's say you have a sprained ankle. You can take half a cup of apple cider vinegar. Now this would be in, like, let's say a basin or, you know, a small bowl. A tablespoon of sea salt. I would probably use Epsom salt versus sea salt personally. Deep blue, marjoram, and lemongrass. Those all have such great anti-inflammatory properties. Also, they have analgesic properties, so they're going to help with the pain, they're going to help with the inflammation and the swelling. And so what you would do is you would just soak, you know, say it was your ankle for, 15 to 20 minutes, and you could do that multiple times throughout the day. Now, this little combination here, you could also make that into a full bath. Like you could just put all of this in the bath water. I would use Epsom salt, and I would do a cup of Epsom salt if I were using it in, a full warm bath. This is a great little combo for sore muscles too, just to kind of relax in. Okay, now let's talk about, lastly, I'm going to just kind of finish up with skincare as far as being out in the sun. Zinc oxide, we know, can be kind of a barrier, and many sunscreens have zinc oxide in them. I'm going to give you some tips on how you can make your own sunscreen if you want. Anything from, more, not too complex, but more complex to super duper simple. All right, so we know that zinc oxide does help to absorb the ultraviolet, the not so good rays of the sun. Now remember that sun exposure is important, okay? It's when we're in the sun for extended periods of time during those hottest times of the day, when the ultraviolet rays are the strongest, so to speak, in the middle kind of part of the day. But 20 minutes of sun exposure is actually really important, because that's how we generate vitamin D in our body. And vitamin D is crucial for so many things. Vitamin D helps us to maintain a healthy immune system. It also helps decrease inflammation in the body. So super important that you have good vitamin D levels. All right, so here is an idea of how you can make a moisturizing type sunscreen. This uses olive oil, fractionated coconut oil, Beeswax, now this is one that you will have to melt down because the beeswax is hard. 2 tablespoons of zinc oxide, vitamin E, and then your shea butter is typically firm as well. And so what you would do is you would just heat, this is what I typically do. I have a pot on the stove that has some boiling water in it. I put all of these ingredients into just a mason jar, and then I sit that down in the boiling water. So it only comes to about a fourth of the way up the mason jar, the water does, on the outside of the mason jar. And then you just, stir, not consistent or constantly, but you just kind of, keep stirring it until all of that melts together. And then you add your essential oil at the end once you remove it from the heat. Now, I would suggest helichrysum because guess what? Helichrysum has natural sunscreen in it. It has about an SPF of 20, which is not bad, especially if you're not going to be in the sun for, extended periods of time, hours and hours in that, middle part of the day when the ultraviolet rays are the strongest. Then a 20 would be fine. So helichrysum, again, natural sunscreen, 20 SPF. Many people don't know this as well. Coconut oil actually has an SPF of 15. So actually just by putting coconut oil on, you can get some protection there. And then once you stir in that helichrysum and then let that sit and cool, it's going to firm back up and then be more of kind of like a firm, almost like a salve, but it's very moisturizing to the skin. Okay, now here is an example of let's say you're like, yeah, I don't have time to make that. I'm not doing all that. I'm not getting beeswax and shea butter. Okay, totally, I get it. Here is another option for you. doTERRA makes this amazing hand and body lotion. I love it. It's unscented. We use it, all of us, my whole family uses it because you can scent it with whatever you like to smell like. Or if it's before bed, you can put some lavender in it so that it helps you get a good night's rest. But what you can do is you can take a tube of that hand and body lotion, that unscented lotion. You can add 2 tablespoons of zinc oxide, and then you can add 12 drops of the helichrysum. And that's just kind of a quick, easy, it's not waterproof like the one I just talked about before, but again, it has an SPF of 20, and it's a super quick and easy way to make your own sunscreen. Okay, so let's say you forgot to make your sunscreen, or you just stayed out too long and you didn't apply any sunscreen. Whatever the case is, you got sunburned. Lavender. Lavender is going to be amazing for any type of burn, including one from the sun. 2 other things that I really like to add to my combination of lavender. Now, you can use aloe vera. You don't even have to have that. If you don't have the aloe vera, don't even worry about it. A 2-ounce spray bottle with water, lavender. I like to add frankincense because it has high anti-inflammatory properties. And remember, when your skin is burned, there's inflammation going on there. When it's red and inflamed, that's what that's what's happening, is that there's inflammation there. So frankincense would be great for that. And then peppermint. Peppermint is extremely cooling, so it helps to kind of cool down that burn. So lavender, frankincense, and peppermint would be your go-tos for if you developed any type of sunburn to soothe the skin. And I do want to mention, if you use essential oils and you're using your citrus oils, things like lemon, grapefruit, wild orange, lime, you can have some photosensitivity, which means that your skin could be more prone to sunburn. Now, I have never experienced an issue with this, but I do always like to tell people this because I don't want you to put, let's say you wanted to smell like wild orange and you took the unscented lotion and you put some drops of wild orange in it and then you rubbed it all over your skin and then you decided to go outside for a long period of time. You could have a tendency, to develop a sunburn, to be more sensitive to the sun. So I like to say, give about 12 hours. So I typically, if I'm going to be out in the sun, In the morning, I won't apply any citrus oils directly, on my skin. But the night before, day before, totally fine to use them. I just wanted to point that out. All right. So I think we covered kind of most all of the most common first aid issues that you might experience. I do want to mention a couple of things. Please feel free to ask any questions. If you're watching the recording, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. But these are just kind of ideas of, again, you may not have all of these essential oils, but if you have, a few of them, most people that use oils probably have things like lavender, melaleuca, frankincense, peppermint, some of those kind of more basic common oils. So I would definitely encourage you to, keep these on hand. Use some of them for your first aid issues that come up. If you don't have any essential oils, if you've not used them before, if you're ready to get started, then send me a private message. I'll be happy to help you. We have an amazing essential oil community where I learn so much every day we have a private Facebook group where we post things that work well for us. We ask questions, and it's just a really great kind of support group. There are some great promotions going on for new people this month as well, where you can get $100 in free oils, which is amazing. They only do this one time a year. So if you're ready to get started, I'd love to help you. Send me a private message. And if you have any questions about any of the things that we talked about tonight, then please let me know, and I will be happy to answer them. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Bye.